Hi, everybody. So, talk about continuation of the technical difficulties. We've had this set up now for probably the last half an hour, and I've just tried to jump on and it hasn't worked. So, I'm now doing it on my phone, so that's going to make commenting just a little bit difficult. Yeah, I'm not quite sure what we're going to do about that, but that's okay. We'll just roll with it. I might just verbally respond if you have any questions, and then yeah, I'll maybe write it in the notes a bit later. So if you can hear me, if anybody wants to do a little comment there, just to let me know that I'm coming through, that would be really good. Just a comment there so that you can say that you can hear me. I'm assuming that maybe Dean, can you give me a comment that you can hear? And then I'll get started. Looks good. Okay, no worries. You can hear me. No problem. Okay, so yeah, as I say, the computer just decided to show you after having that all set up. Just got my sound turned on. Okay, perfect. Thank you. All right. So, yeah, anyway, so that's all good. I'll just be on my phone as I say any comments or questions. This is just an open forum, so please ask questions as you go. I'll verbally answer them, and then anything that I might need to make comment on, I'll do that actually in the notes a bit later, because it's going to be hard to do it. Excellent, no problem. Alrighty, so I just thought this is so exciting for me to have you guys all on board, and we've got a really, really wonderful group together, and the Facebook live stream really is the opportunity for everybody to get together and again ask questions and share success stories and challenges that you're having, any questions that you might want to have clarity around. And so basically what I would like to replicate here on the live streams really is that opportunity that you get when you do attend a group. And so I know that there's quite a few people actually in the group who have done groups with me in the past, face-to-face groups, real life groups, and some of you have been doing them for many years with me, which is just I'm so excited about that, to actually see the next generation of groups and how I believe that it makes it accessible and how it's going to really be a way of the future essentially. So it's really exciting to be able to see the innovation, and we can bring groups together online, and this is what I really hope with the Facebook live stream. That people will kind of treat it as if they're attending a group. So I know that it's difficult to put the time aside, and I appreciate you guys all doing that for tonight. And I do hope that this will be a really good way of people to be able to engage with each other and share any questions or success stories or challenges. So basically, if you think about now Love Your Way Happy and how it's going to be delivered. So it is, like I said in the information given, that it's going to be multimodal. So that means that what you've experienced over the last couple of days already is pretty much how it's going to unfold. So there'll be journaling prompts and questions. So day one essentially was an example of that, and we'll go through that tonight. So essentially tonight's an opportunity for us to consolidate what we talked about, or what I was suggesting in that PDF file. So that's an example of something, but I guess not to be intimidated by that, because that really is the front. Hello again. As you can see, I've now turned into an angel. I've had to go outside. This is really crazy. I kind of now get the feeling that Facebook's against me. Shh, don't tell anybody. And hopefully you're all going to be able to jump back on again. Yeah, because I just lost internet connection, so now I'm going to do it outside. So hopefully you guys are going to be able to jump back on. Yeah, so anyway, I'll just continue on as if I've been uninterrupted. Yeah, that's a bit of a shame, really. Anyway, hopefully you guys will jump back on. So as I was saying, Love Your Way Happy. Yep, sorry, I'm just waiting for a second. see if you guys can jump back on. Okay, excellent. So thank you, Jade. Kicking it back off again. Sorry, everybody. Technical difficulties. Talk about next gen. Yeah. Anyway, so I'll just keep going, and you guys can watch it, you know, on replay anyway. So hopefully you'll be able to jump back on. So Love Your Way Happy. Basically, what you've been receiving over the last few days is really how it's going to be unfolding. And so, yep, you'll get some. For those who are just jumping on now, I had to go outside, so this is the outside lighting. So yes, I have turned into an angel. Yeah, risk going back inside because I live out in the bush. I'm getting eaten by mozzies. Okay, so yeah, Love Your Way Happy, as I say. What we've been experiencing over the last few days is really what my intention is for the course. Not to be intimidated by that first... Sorry, I'm just putting mosquito stuff on now. Not to be intimidated by that first download. That's really setting us up for the course. And yeah, people are commenting now that they're jumping on. And so, yeah, if you can take that time, and I'm going to set aside, if we can maintain connectivity, setting a little bit of time tonight just to talk you through that. And Jacinta, I've just had to go outside because I lost connectivity. So if you're thinking I'm doing something weird, I am. I'm just putting mosquito stuff on because I'm getting smashed by mozzies. Yeah, so we'll go through a little bit of that tonight, which will, you know, we won't take too long. But you know, it is important that we kind of set the course up, and taking some time to be able to do that is really, really important. So if you want to get the most out of the course, then that year review, that session 1 or day 1, was really about setting yourself up. So having a bit of a think about, you know, what has happened for you over the last year or so, and yeah, whether or not, you know, you've been achieving the things that you want to be achieving, and whether or not, you know, there's some room for improvement. And so really that session 1, or day 1, that's what that was all about. And we'll talk about that in a minute. And so don't be intimidated by that one. That one was a big one. And certainly my intention for the 30 days is to have a little bite-size things that you can implement on a daily basis. So, yeah, so really importantly that we're just, you know, investing that time in the initial stages, which would be really good. And then every day, or if you see a strategy there that particularly resonates with you, then trying that on, that would be really great, with a view to, you know, trying something different every day, or, you know, if you find something again that particularly resonates, if you wanted to do it over a few days, that's fine too. I always operate from that one thing principle. If you take one thing home and you practice it, even if you do one thing for the week, that'll still make a significant difference. So, you know, to be able to make a change, obviously then we need to be practicing these things, and you know, that's really key to be implementing. You know, as I've probably said before, you know, that as a psychologist I've done lots and lots and lots and lots of reading, but it was really only when I started implementing this stuff in my life could I actually see that, hey, this stuff really works. Like, I could see changes in others, but you know, it's really wonderful to be able to see changes for everybody else as well as for myself. And so, yeah, so I know these strategies work. I'm totally passionate about sharing it, and that's really what Love Your Way Happy is about. So, yeah, so I'd just like to maybe just risk going back inside, and hopefully I won't lose you guys again, just to get that printout. I don't know if you guys got the memo of printing out that session 1, but I did. And so I'd just like to go through it with you now. So if you have a pen and paper handy, that would be really good, because I know people are busy and it's possible you might have just glossed over this a little bit. But I'd like just to take the time now, and like I said, if you can hear that background noise, that's Sunny probably trying to interrupt. Yeah, so... Yeah, so it's important to take that time to actually work through that process. So we'll just do that now. And like I said before, that this live stream really is about taking that time out and to be looking through the strategies that you have tried and to see whether or not, again, you have any questions. So I might just step you through that now. And if you do have questions, just throw them at me. That's what I'm here for. So if you do have a pen and paper handy, that would be really good. And I'll just start to work you through this process a little bit. So this is from day one. And so what I'd like you to do with this one is for you guys just to think back on your year. And again, if you've got a pen and paper handy, just to make some notes about your year, and just casting your mind back, because obviously it's, what are we, nearly 9 months in now, and just casting your mind back over the year and thinking about where you were at the start of the year. And just thinking about what your intentions or plans, if you had any, what they were for the year. And so you're just thinking about that now. What went at the beginning of this year, and if you guess, you have to guess, that's fine. If you, set goals and all that sort of stuff, then great. But, oftentimes people just, think about it or sometimes even just roll through the year without actually much planning at all. And so, having a think about, where you were at, mentally, emotionally, financially, mood-wise, and just think about where you're at. And now comparing it to where you are now. And just seeing if you can check in around whether or not this is kind of what you were expecting. So again, casting your mind back, thinking about what, where you were at, and thinking about now, and thinking about whether or not this is what you were expecting. Were you expecting kind of to be here, or does it surprise you to be where you're at? Is it you're better or worse than what you thought it was going to be? Just thinking about that now. And if I had the keyboard, I'd be sort of typing that in as a bit of a prompt for you guys, but it certainly is in that day one. So just trying that on now and thinking about, So for me, I do this planning session at the beginning of every year, and so really what we want to look at here are those things that that kind of have worked out. So that there are things that we might be able to celebrate that we've done really well, and potentially then also some disappointments, things that didn't quite work out as planned, and then what we might learn from that in order to be able to make a change. So what we're really trying to tap into here is, what are those things that you might most want to get out of your time here? We want to get you the best bang for your buck. And so, what would it really be, looking at where you were, where you are now? Does that kind of marry up, or was it expected, or are there things that you might want differently for yourself? So just, as my example, my intention when I started this year was to start to run the CBT groups, cognitive behaviour therapy groups at the Super Clinic, which is where I work, my face-to-face job, and, to write the course and to deliver the course to my existing clients. And, I did that, and I wrote the course and did it and implemented it, and I believe, all the feedback was really great, and I believe that it was a real success. But when I actually did it, what I realised was actually that was sort of going down the wrong path for me. So it meant, another night away from my family. And as much as I loved the work, I think the mode of delivery was all wrong in terms of, my responsibilities or my priorities for my family and things like that. And so, when I did this review for myself, I said, well, hey, this is perfect, the right kind of work, but in the wrong way. And effectively what you see before you now is the result of my mid-year review. And so what are we now? Again, nearly September. And so, in a few months after having delivered that course, just to totally then revisit what I had planned for this year. And so instead of waiting to December to do my next year review, doing that mid-year review allowed me to actually see, well, no, that's not, I don't want to do that. That doesn't actually sit right with me, and I need to modify it. And so instead of waiting, and wasting 6 months, doing the wrong kind of thing, I could actually then revise it, and then make a change for the better. And this is what I hope, that it will, will look like from now on in. This is, where it's going, in terms of being able to, work more easily from home and, spend that time with my family. And, so that's, I guess, where I'm coming from with, the courses online. And certainly that has resulted directly from doing my mid-year review and looking at, that was a success, but it still wasn't quite right. And how can I evolve that? So we can see within that there were some disappointments. I was like, oh, this is what I've planned all year and that's not really going to work out. And so working through those disappointments. But then what arose from that was a new idea. And so I could have gotten really down and out about it and said, I've wasted, it probably took me with the family, probably 4 or 5 months to write that course, because I'm doing it on Saturday mornings for 4 hours. So, that's not a lot of time. So it took me a long time to write it. So I could have gotten easily very disappointed. But, so working with that disappointment and saying, actually, what can I learn from this about more specifically what it is that I actually want? And then, this is what you see before you, that I can take the courses online and then that can work a lot more easily and much more in flow with what it is that's important to me. The work's important, delivery is important, as well as, working that within the family. And so it's really important when we look at those disappointments that we're looking at them as learning opportunities, and so it's easy sometimes to get bogged down in them and say, oh, that didn't work out and that was wasted or I failed or whatever. It is easy to get bogged down in that, but it is also important then to say, actually, what's the learning? What's that gold nugget that if we actually say, well, all that work or, what we've done over the course of the year, what can we learn from that? So whatever those disappointments or things that haven't quite worked out for you, whatever they are, when we actually look at them, we can see that there are learning opportunities within that. And so, that's really important for us to look at as well. So we're looking at then the celebrations and successes, and then the disappointments, and then the learning. And so, from that, I guess what I'd really like for you guys to have a think about really is then to start to look at setting some, and I don't really like the word goals because, oftentimes people have like exercise, people have kind of preconceived ideas and oftentimes negative ones. So what I like to do instead is to call them intentions. So what are we kind of planning or intending then for the year? And what I'd like you to do is, when you take your time to work through that, is to then think about potential internal intentions or internal goals or plans that you might like to make for yourself. So basically, one of those intentions for me from, the disappointments that I had was actually really to start to listen to myself, to what actually is important to me. And so, that obviously, the work's important to me, but I have this sort of competing value system essentially that, I've got my work and that's a passion, and then I've got my family and they're obviously very close to my heart and, important as well. And so I really had to kind of admit to myself that, yes, that these things are important to me and there's a conflict, but how do I help them sort of marry the two or come together? And so what that meant was my internal goal was, hey, I really need to start to listen to myself more. I need to really start to tune into my values and what's important. And I need to really start to, or I get now, to start to act more in alignment with that. And so, so that's more of an internal goal. I guess, what you see externally would be, okay, well, promote the course, get it out there, invite people to be on board, all of that. They're sort of external goals. But I guess what I'd really like you to have a think about are those internal goals. And so the suggestions I've made on the page, which, are further to perhaps some of my own learnings, about those things about, being kinder to yourself, listening to yourself, tuning in and asking, being kind to ourselves around our, stronger emotions or, things like that. So as opposed to necessarily external goals, but really seeing if you can set some internal ones for yourself. And you might, if any are coming through for you now, you might want to write them down as well. And so if we're looking at that, review, what it is, looking back to where you started, looking to where you are now, what's your assessment of that? Has it kind of worked out? Are successes, disappointments? Are you pretty much about where you thought you would be? Are you surprised? And why? And then looking at, again, what are the disappointments, successes, what can we learn from that? And then starting to set some internal goals, because that's really what I would love for you to get out of Love Your Way Happy, is for you to be able to really start to change that relationship with yourself. And that's where the internal goals come in. Because when we actually start to operate from those internal goals, like mine, really starting to actually listen to myself about what's important and then acting in alignment with that, you can see that it doesn't really matter what the external goals are. If I did that and I did that consistently, then that obviously your life's going to change. And so, if you're tuning into that, those internal goals, it doesn't really matter what those external ones are, because they will just unfold and become apparent to go, all right, if I'm listening to myself, what's the obvious next step? So importantly that we're, setting those internal goals, and then everything else can sort of unfold from there. So that's that process. I'll just have a look. Did I miss anything? So that's I alluded to that just then around the action steps. So we're setting those internal goals, and then what I'd really like you to do, because really, these things only change when we start to implement them. And as much as we're not necessarily setting those those external goals at the start, we do want to start to take action on them. So when we say, for example, mine, which is around really starting to listen to myself around what's important, then I can say, what are those action steps that arise from that? And so, if I'm really starting to tune in and listening to myself, what are those action steps? And so obviously you could see for me was actually to say, well, I want to take these courses online and being able to offer it to a broader audience. I really want to change the tone from more of a clinical setting to more of a positive psychology, more of that sort of coaching model, if you like, and really turning it into something that has always been a huge part of my practice. But it's sort of like in that clinical setting, it's a little bit of a secret. So when you work under that Medicare structure, how I work kind of. It's not necessarily supported exactly by Medicare or whatever it is, but it is always a part of my practice, and so being able to actually do that more openly and honestly and put words around it and really make it crystal clear for people that this is how I work, and if you enjoy this process and if you enjoy how it is that I work, then come join me, because this is it, and there's no guesswork there. So my intention behind all of my writings is for it to be crystal clear, and so again, those action steps that arose for me, listening to myself, you can see then all of what you see before you is arises from that, and writing down specifically those action steps, and so pretty much that's that first process. So if you have any questions on it, now's the time to ask. I guess there was one other little point that I wanted to make around the questioning. Again, if you recognise that internal voice, so, whatever comes up for you around those disappointments, it is really important that we watch that internal critic. When we're looking at disappointments or we're looking at our pain points, we really have to watch that internal critic that, likes to come up and bite us in the arse at those times. And so when we're looking at the learnings, what I'd really like you to have a think about, like I've said in the thing, that we're looking at those, what I like to call those higher learnings. And so, the learnings like, well, don't do that again, or, I've learnt that I'm really terrible at doing that, or, not to have relationships, or, those sorts of learnings that, the internal critic likes to jump to. Clearly, they're not very helpful. And so we really want to then tune in and say, when we're looking at those disappointments, we really want to be looking at those, the higher learnings, or the ones that are going to be most helpful to you, and so if you can push past that, if that comes up for you, that's okay. But what we're wanting to do is to look at learnings that are going to be more supportive of you and for you. And so if we can recognise that internal critic, if it were to come up, we say, well, actually that's not very helpful. What else could I learn? What else could I learn? Are there some positive learnings that I can take from this? And so that's important, that little piece there. And so, yeah, so that's pretty much that process. The other one, day two, was about the imagining happiness. And I hope by now some of you guys have had a chance to listen to that. And, that's just such a delightful process. And really, what that's doing is allowing us to tap into the power of our imagination. And if you, suffer from anxiety, and, I guess anxiety really is driven by the imagery. So, if we think about, when I talk to people about anxiety, what's the worst case scenario? Oftentimes, there's pretty severe sort of imagery that comes along with that. And so what we're really wanting to do is to use that power of imagining in our favour. We already know how powerful it is if you experience anxiety or if you experience depression. When we replay all those bad things that have ever happened, there's pretty powerful imagery there, and that really taps into those emotional parts, emotional pain points, and we're just replaying those images over and over again. And so what we're wanting to do is to become sort of masters really at recognising that imagery is something that we can use against ourselves, or that it is something that we can use for ourselves as well. And so that process then, imagining happiness, is that we're allowing those things to be tried on. To imagine what would it mean if everything was well in the world, or not in the world, but for your world. What would it mean, if everything actually was okay? What would happen if we could try that on for a little while? So if you haven't already, I'd encourage you to go and have a listen to that, because there's a series of questions and areas, and pretty much each of those areas are what's going to be covered in Love Your Way Happy. And so we're trying on, what would happen if, you could feel resilient in the face of adversity? What would happen if you could feel gratitude? And so we're going to be trying those things on throughout the course. So basically there'll be a section of about 3 days thereabouts on each topic. Certainly I'm going to allow the creative process to unfold, so don't hold me to that. But basically, that's the intention so far, is that, there'll be about 3 days focus on each topic. And then, so when we come to a live stream, we would have covered at least 2 topics. And within those topics, like I say, there'll be some audio, there'll be some writing, some journaling prompts, and potentially another video in there somewhere. And so, yeah. Again, about 3 days or thereabouts per topic. And so really they're just an introduction, so an introduction to increasing gratitude, an introduction to increasing your resilience, the relationship with yourself and improving that. And so, giving you a bit of a taste essentially of all of these aspects that we know contribute to happiness. And so I like to think of happiness, and this is certainly not, I didn't come up with this, this is something that, evidence does support this, that happiness is not necessarily, that state of bliss, or where we kind of get there and we have this state and then it's ongoing forever and ever. Basically, happiness is something that arises when we know that we've got the resilience and capacity to cope, that we can support ourselves during times of hardship and difficulty, that we've got a positive relationship with ourselves, that we know when we stuff up that, at least we're going to be there for ourselves. And so happiness then acknowledges the good and the bad, the good and so-called bad, and it embraces all aspects, and it gives us the capacity to be able to weather the storms in life, essentially, because that's going to happen to everybody. There's going to be adversity and suffering and hardship, no matter what you do. And so it's really the avoidance of negative emotion. It's the avoidance of bad things happening that really creates suffering. That's suffering, essentially. And so basically when we have the skills and resilience and capacity to weather those storms, and to, like we said in the Imagining Happiness, make friends with that emotional life of yours, that it's there, it's actually trying to help you, even if sometimes it is a little bit screw-if, and even if sometimes it leads you up the garden path, that ultimately what it's trying to do is help you. And so our job is then to be discerning about, is this fear talking? Yeah, or fear talking and guiding you and directing you? Or is it possible that there's something, bigger at hand where we can have some of that fear and still do some of those things anyway? And so our job is to really, learn how to be discerning with that. Again, build that resilience, and all of that capacity to build a relationship with yourself that's positive adds to that resilience. And so, I guess they're the key take-home messages from Love Your Way Happy. And so I hope you're enjoying the course so far. And I do hope that you'll take some time. I know I've stepped you through it a little bit quite quickly today. But if you can take some time to do that process and sit down and really think about your year in review, like I know it's something that I'm finding, as I say, do it at the beginning of the year, that if you do it at the middle of the year, that, we don't have to kind of just sit and, wait, for 6 months. If things aren't working for you, let's change them now. And again, make some of those internal goals or set some of those new internal goals to really then set your path off, on a positive note for the rest of the year. And then we can really, over the next 30 or 28 days or whatever it is now, we can really start to then, really crystallise some of those skills and some of your intentions around what it is that you want to be achieving for yourself, and really then, again, change the course of the rest of the year is my intention for you guys and, what's in the course. So if there aren't any questions, that was really all I had to talk to you about today. I just wanted to review the Love Your Way Happy and its structure, the year in review and the Imagining Happiness, which are the two strategies of the last 2 days. And just to set you guys up over the next 6 days, as I say, there's going to be 2 topics thereabouts. And, when you do those, just be thinking, if you have any questions, jot them down. And then next Wednesday, I'm going to do another live stream at about 8 o'clock. Hopefully I won't have the same techie issues. And so I'll do that. And then again, if you have any questions or successes or celebrations that you want to share, I'd really love to hear them. The Facebook page is certainly, I encourage everybody to be posting there if you've got questions or if you've got any challenges or if you have any successes, then that's the place to share it. And I'll be keeping an eye on that page, obviously. So that's all for now, short and sharp, and hopefully you've gotten something out of tonight's session. Review that year in review. That would be really helpful. And again, let's really set our intentions for getting the most out of Love Your Way Happy. Set that challenge for yourself to get the most out of it by really being deliberate and conscious around what it is that you're wanting to get out of it for yourself, because that'll be different for everybody. So I'm really glad to have you guys on board. It's an amazing group, and I look forward to talking to you guys next week. Okay, we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.